Welcome to another edition to Motivational Sundays with Kevin and Friends. Hey, this show was originally created from one of the more than 300 original quotes that I had for the contents of my books. I study human behavior, and I was always curious of how one quote landed on another. I gathered my friends together, and based on their perspective and interpretation, we talk about quotes. Hi, my name is Kevin McLemore. I am the host, and I am joined with Christopher and Gilda James, my co-hosts, Larnez Kinsey, brother D Mac, Daryl Mack, the voice of our show, Otis Spencer, our own personal medium, Francine Tesler, and the beautiful, good-looking, smooth-skinned brother Paul Brown has joined us. And we're going to toss out a quote for you, and happy Easter to everyone. And if your pre-Sunday church, thank you for attending. So, without further ado, we'd like to go ahead and say, Brother Otis, the golden voice, the golden child. I'm going to tell you, James Earl Jones, you're so lucky you got your start before Otis did, because he would have been one of the top voiceover people in this world. Otis, go ahead and with that silky smooth voice of yours.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
The quote today is, "The best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others," by Mahatma Gandhi.
All right. And this quote was brought to us by the smooth skin and sexy glasses. I'm going to tell you, D. Mac, Daryl Mack. How did Gandhi land on you this morning with this quote, bringing it?
So, first of all, good morning to everyone, and happy Resurrection Sunday. So, just to give you a little bit of insight on this quote, how this quote fell upon me. About 8 years ago, I had some sixth grade students of mine. They wanted to bless me with a gift in the form of a chair. And what they did was they decorated and painted a chair, and they wanted to give it to me as a gift to put in my office. And so they asked me, they said, "Mr. Mack, can you give us one of your famous quotes? Because we want to write it, paint it and decorate it on the chair." And so I gave them one of my famous quotes that I live by. And this was it. "The best way to find yourself is in the service of others. Lose yourself to be in the service of others." And this is a quote that's very, very dear to me, that upon my beginning and journey into education, trying to find my purpose, my mother always said to me, always be of service. When you're in the field of education, going into field of education, you're going to be of service to people, not just in the school system, but being in the community as well. So this is something very, very dear to my heart. It speaks to me every day. Once again, it's very dear to my heart. I love this quote. I live by it. I love being of service to young people as well as adults. Being part of the community, growing up in Yonkers, coming back to the community, and working, being a part of a school system where I graduated from, now finishing up 33 years. I just like to say, it's been a blessing. So I just continue to keep myself mindful of always being of service to mankind, and not looking for anything, but just trying to help uplift the community, uplift the world, to just empower our young people, and to make them become productive citizens of society. So I hope I answered the question.
Well, you brought the quote. You don't have to answer any question. Your interpretation, perspective on this, and let me say to you and to every unsung hero that wears the title of teacher, we thank you, because if I can speak for everyone on this panel, without someone pouring something into our cup would have never been as full as it is today.
Exactly.
So I want to say thank you, and thank you to your students for wanting to carry something forward from something they have learned from you, and also Mr. Gandhi. Thank you for doing this, Larnez Kinsey. I'm just curious to what you've got to say. And Kevin McGill, how you doing, brother? Turn on your camera. It's not that type of show. Otherwise, I got to let you go, bro. So Larnez, tell us how this quote lands on you.
Well, Grand Rising, everybody. Happy Easter. Gandhi's words remind us about a journey of self-discovery often begins with the act of selflessly serving others. As we follow our divine paths, we understand the significance of embodying the spirit of service and sacrifice. By losing ourselves in the noble pursuit of uplifting our fellow beings, we find ourselves enriched with purpose and fulfillment beyond measure. I think we should listen to Gandhi's call to action and commit ourselves to the service of humanity. In doing so, we not only honor our own souls, but we also contribute to the collective elevation of our community and beyond. I'm inspired by Gandhi's example. You know, he strived to emulate his unwavering dedication to the betterment of mankind. So, as we start this new week, we should walk in his footsteps and walk in that greatness, because his greatness was guided by the light of compassion and selflessness. And I just want to leave you with one more thing. You should always remember you have to give a breath to take a breath. And I'm going to yield the mic with that. That's how this quote hit me.
And I hope to our listeners, you understand that became a quote of its own.
Yeah.
You have to give a breath in order to live a breath. And I'm so glad I don't have to follow you. Paul Brown, I'm going to tell you. And to our listeners, show is unscripted. Larnez should be one of the top motivational speakers out there, because when she speaks, the ground shakes.
Yep.
All right. So you pay attention when the ground starts moving. All right. And then you listen to what she has said, because she has something that needs to be heard. Paul Brown, good luck.
Sir.
Good luck.
Well, yeah, I always seem to be the one. Previously, when I was dealing with the honors for the inauguration that I was in the other day, it was always that I was always the one who was doing the cleanup behind. And it was quite an interesting challenge, to be able to follow behind some of these great quotes and ideas. For me, when I think about how important it is to basically to give service or to help others, this is one of the reasons why I came to the point of getting involved in business. Because see, there was a point in life where we kind of lost our way to the ideals of unifying, talking, and communicating. The biggest thing that comes out of this is that that is such an important factor. I mean, I use this quote of saying, "Hey, it's cool that we got Amazon, where we do mail order, but it separates us, and it's almost like when we come together without communication, it's like we look like longtime strangers to each other when it should be spiritual interaction, And so when Mahatma Gandhi, came up with this idea, it was still biblically quoted to the ideals of where that as a unit or as unity, we are as one and we can get a lot done. In this process, what it has done for me is it has had me, instead of just, normally like in this type of a situation, it would be sometimes it would be very nice if we were able to come together physically and be able to talk to each other. Because nowadays, we were talking about the kids and how they use their telephones and how they don't know how to communicate to each other. This is a craft, and this is something that's been embedded in us for a long time. As we were growing up, we used to have the family sit-arounds where we would either do a sort of a talent, or we would physically, sit at the table eating food and talk to each other about how our days have gone. So the importance of this, I guess, would be that, sure, it is such a refreshing idea to be able to help each other and to give service to one another when we can, so that it doesn't become a lost art. So that's how I see it.
And that's the whole thing with our society today and connecting one brother to another brother, one sister to another sister, a sister to a brother, an aunt to an uncle, a grandparent to a child, and a neighbor to a neighbor, is to be able to bring us together. And believe it or not, the long-term goal, the short-term goal of this platform is one day to be able to do this in one space and invite our listeners in order to share that space and do the show live. So that is in the working, and hopefully Francine will go ahead and see that in our future, being our own team.
You will.
All right. So I appreciate that share. I appreciate you putting that into the world, that energy. And I know things are lining up. You know, Francine said between, June and October, things are going to happen. So we're going to see. And Brother Miguel, how you doing? So Francine and Otis, I'm going to say, just for the people that just tuned in, can you deliver with that sultry voice of yours one more time, the quote?
The best way to lose yourself is to find yourself in the service of others.
And Francine, you've been serving people for probably 2 or 3 lifetimes, because I know for a fact you've been here before, because I've met you before.
I feel like I know you too. Yeah,
right.
absolutely. I feel like I know everyone here. And Daryl, I love his glasses, so I just had to comment on that. And I love Mr. Brown's hat. So, so happy
Thank you
Easter,
so much.
everyone.
Happy Easter to you.
So this quote hit me pretty big. I love anything to do with Gandhi. It actually helps to motivate me more to keep paying things forward, which is what I always do. And I was talking to Larnez about it the other day. We have to remain open to the endless possibilities. Basically, we should become spiritual life matchmakers, if you think about it, and this way we can serve others. Now, connecting people with others facing various situations can also encourage, uplift, and support one another. Now, if you think about that, it doesn't sound like a big deal because not everyone has a lot to offer. But again, you can offer your time, a smile, things like that. Now, an eagle that's soaring high, if we kind of envision ourselves to be like eagles, they strive to see that we're all interconnected and part of a larger big whole, right? So every small act that we take can have a significant impact and create a snowball effect and a positive energy. So it's our shared responsibility as a collective and as a spiritual energy and as people and as humans to make that positive impact and think about a butterfly effect. I don't know if anyone's ever heard about that, but basically every little action that we take can make a ripple effect outward and change the world around us. So even though the butterfly is a small little creature, its wings will flap, and the theory is that it can create a tornado somewhere else, or it could make a storm go away. So that's one idea. And let us soar high like the eagles, because they could see everything that's down there. One of the best hunters. They take their time. They're very strategic, right? And we need to make that outward change to create that ripple. And there's limitless possibilities of impacting those around us, because we never know what other people are going through. The happiest people, the saddest. Look at Robin Williams. There was, I forgot his name, the chef. I mean, there's a lot of people that wind up not taking care of themselves because they're in servitude of others. And even clowns. I have an obsession with sad clowns, because most clowns were like, but they could be hurting on the inside, so one little small act, you pay it forward, and it may not come back to you from that person or that situation, but the universe takes care of its own, and it may take a while, but eventually things will happen, and you have to think positively. Yes, bad things happen to good people, but that also gives us more stability And it also gives us a leverage because we can't always have everything that's great, because then there's no balance, right? And then the other thing is, I always say God gives us what we can handle, not always what we want to deal with. So even if we go through a bad cycles, I mean, I could tell you guys stories, going through some stuff with my parents before we lost them, 10 years. But I always said, okay, there's a reason that this is happening. And it's humbled me and it changed me. And I'm no longer carrying ego, because there was a time where I had a little bit more ego because I would have a 3 to 6 hour wait for people to see me. So it's a big surprise for people that they think that they don't matter, but everyone matters. Just like the ants, they all work together. The beehive, even though you have the queen bee, each bee has its own intricate part of doing something. Make sense? So that's just my way of taking it, and it really hit me. And I've been talking about it a lot. I will always connect people and always try to help, always, regardless if people kick me in the head or throw me under the bridge. It's jealousy, and it's also people are not as evolved, unfortunately. And right now, globally, there's a fight between good and evil. I don't have to tell anyone, and good has to win. And God gives us what we need. And, if we don't listen to God or the universe, they make us listen. He makes us listen. He kicks us in the ass. So if you're doing too much, Larnez, eventually you're going to be like, okay, God's going to say, oh, you got to slow down. You don't want to crash and burn. Same thing with Kevin. Too much, like, there's a lot of shift. A lot of people around me are shifting out. A lot of change. So listen to what the universe is saying. Everyone has the ability to get messages from spirit, from God, from the universe, and that's my analogy for today.
And thank you for your share. Thank you for calling both me and Larnez out. The other people in here are busy too. You should have mentioned those names. Kevin Gill. I mean, Kevin's got a great name. Kevin, when you look up the name, it says he is a Greek god. He's a king. Mr. McGill, and for you listeners that just heard Francine call us out, she's talking to you too. It doesn't
Well,
take much to be kind to someone
mhm.
else. It doesn't take much away from you to give of yourself. But you also gotta realize, life is difficult. In order for life to become easy, you have to overcome some things. You have to meet some challenges. And they say God can only give you as much as you can handle. I know on my end, sometimes I wish he didn't believe so much in me. But with that said, Kevin McGill, how you doing? Our new co-host. And the one amazing thing about this show is that we put it out there. We're probably the only podcast show that invites our listeners to come in and be part of our show, to be part of this. We take a quote based on perception or interpretation. And like I said, I originally started out, I'm a 4-time published author, and I write things, and I've heard things, that I've been taught things, and I was always wondering what the interpretation of how other people perceived it, because life does reward action, and life holds you to the lack of action. So Kevin McGill, Otis, one more time for Kevin, gives that quote.
The best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others.
Mr. McGill, how you doing, brother?
Good morning, everyone.
Mhm.
I'm grateful to be here this morning, and thank you, Larnez, for inviting me. We met yesterday at a function, and we were both doing service. It's ironic we're talking about service today. We were both doing service yesterday, and as an adjunct professor, I'm big on researching and history and things like that. And Mahatma Gandhi is one of my idols. I like Gandhi and some things, but this hit me when I took a photo of the quote yesterday, and it kind of I ran it around my databanks last night, and thought about where this fits in my life. First and foremost, I want to thank Francine for talking about eagles. Eagle is my spirit animal. I look up my spirit animal because one of the things that my mother used to always, tell me was don't cluck around with the chickens. She says, soar like an eagle. Eagles fly above storms. She says you're gonna run into some storms, but eagles are always at a height where they're above the storms. And I love that. I'm glad you reminded me of that. And speaking of service, service, there's a universal law, I believe, that when I give, I receive. And I know, coming from a standpoint of psychology, the ego always wants to kick in and be the narcissist twin that, I'm a Gemini, so let's get that out first. And he always wants to take over and wants me to always think about me, myself, and I. That's the narcissist piece. So I belong to two fellowships where I've been indulged in service for 26 and a half plus years. And I have an infinite love for service, because service helps me get out of my own self-centered motives, my own self-centered desires. And when I give people help, it gives me the help that I need as well. So this quote today was so appropriate, because one of the things that people, they say they adore, I don't see why people adore me, but I accept it. They say my mother used to always tell me, you should run for some type of public office because you're such an advocate for the people. You're such a person who, when I was young, I used to just give stuff away. My mother says, you always have such a giving spirit. And I guess that's because of the love of service that I was instilled as a young man. Even today, I work for a veterans program here in New York, and we're in 7 counties, and we help homeless vets find housing. We pay like 6 months rent for them, security deposits, brokers fees, rental arrears, all of that stuff. And I do it for the compassion of love of service. I go to bat for my veterans, because because of the brave, we in the land of the free. And I feel that when they come home, my dad was a vet, my brother was a vet, my uncle was a vet, my cousin was a vet, everybody but me. So I've always been around veterans. And I look at the fact that when they come home after doing service for this country, that they get a bum rap. They can't get jobs, they can't find housing. So, I place myself in service and ask, what can I do? And from me doing service for these last 13 years with these veterans, I've obtained everything that I wanted and needed, because like I said earlier, when I give, I know I receive. You know what I mean? I don't necessarily give people money in order to receive money, right? But I know when I do something selfless, like a selfless random act of kindness, I'm going to get something back that I need or want, right? Let me give you a quick analogy. So there was a guy, and I don't want to, monopolize the meeting. There was a guy one day.
Oh, go ahead. You're doing good at it.
Oh, okay. There was a guy. I was walking with my coworker, and we were going to get some coffee. He liked McDonald's coffee, so we were going to get some coffee. And this guy from the shelter ran up with us, Mister, can I borrow a couple of dollars? So pulled $5 out of my pocket and gave it to him. And my coworker says, I'm not giving you anything. So he says, what's you going to give him the $5 for? You know what he's going to do with it. I said, listen, I have it. I'm going to give it to him. He may be hungry. I can't judge this guy. You know what I mean? It's not my business to decide what he's going to do with that $5, right? He says, I'm not giving him anything. 37 days later, same coworker and I walk into McDonald's to get him some coffee. Somebody runs up on me. Mister, I've been looking for you. I said, you look familiar, but I can't place your name. He says, well, about a little bit over a month ago, you gave me $5. I bought me a 50-cent beer. It took me over the top. I went into detox, and I've been sober ever since. So I looked at my coworker. I said, you see, you never know who God is going to place in your life for what. The moral of this story is the same guy who didn't want to do a random act of kindness and service to this guy called me 2:30 in the morning. He had a fight with the police on the Major Deegan here in New York. Didn't know how he got there. Got a breathalyzer in his car. I said, you see, God doesn't like ugly. I said, you never know who's going to put in your path. I give because I just have a giving spirit. You know what I mean? And like Gandhi says, I lose myself in the service of others because the ego always wants me to think me, myself, and I. I always listen not to judge people, but just observations that I make. I always listen to people when they talk in the me, I, me. That raises my antennas. right? That lets me know that these are people, they, not to judge them, but they're so absorbed and self-consumed with self that they can't see the compassion of helping others. You know what I mean? So, this is like a great meeting. I'm glad you invited me this morning, because as you probably can see over here, I have books and books and books and books on people. I found out recently Sidney Poitier, who I just purchased his book, was my grandmother's third cousin, and I can go on and on for hours. So I'm going to start joining you guys on Sunday mornings. And, thanks for listening to me, guys. And happy
All right.
Resurrection Day.
And thank you. You didn't monopolize it. It was only 10.5 minutes. It's fine. We're cool with that.
Well, as a professor, I can go, so.
All right. We'll learn. We'll learn that. Hey, when I do this, that means wrap it up. All right. But anyway, our gifted couple, talking about love American style, love on any coast, whatever. We got Gilda and Chris James. It's amazing. They dress in two different rooms, but they come out in the same outfits. I love these two people. Gilda, how does this quote, "The best way to find yourself or to lose yourself is in the service of others" by Gandhi, how does this land on you?
Happy Easter, everyone. Well, how does it land on me? Well, I was about almost 8 years ago, I moved to Boston, and I had already retired from my old job in Connecticut. And I said, what am I going to do? Because I'm used to doing something as far as work. So I start trying to find a way to learn, get into the community. So one of the ways was I started going to the senior center, because they have sources of things to do, and people, get opportunity to talk to the elderly. And but I was just fascinated being around the seniors. So in fact, my husband used to ask me, he said, why are you there? I said, because I like to find out, I like to learn about people. And from learning about them, I ended up joining the age-friendly group. And also, I'm a member of the Counseling on Aging. I'm not much of a talker, but I'm much of a doer. I do things. I don't get in front of people and discuss what I do. I just simply do them. So on that note is I just had to be where there's people that I could communicate and being around my age and finding out what the different things that they offer in the community. So that's all I have to add to that.
Well, I'm going to say this is like anytime you hear someone that says they're not much of a talker, pay attention because they have something to say, and it's amazing. It's amazing when you bring people like this together on a platform like this. It's because love Gilda to death. We had a great photo shoot a couple of weeks ago, and we're probably going to do this again. And Gilda says she's not a great talker, but I'm going to tell you, when she does talk, she actually speaks from the heart, and she has something to say. And this is probably the most that she's talked for the last year that we've been doing this. So she has just become a great talker. Gilda, you're beautiful both inside and outside. And I'm going to piggyback off of Kevin's comment, is when he talked about giving of service. Our military people throughout the history of this country has sacrificed the greatest sacrifice of all, their personal lives, in order for us to become stronger as a nation, to bring us closer together as people, even though that people didn't want us to come together, to defend what we think is right, our ground, our families, and our life. And I would say outside of the Black race, our U.S. government has turned its back on its greatest warrior, and that's our military personnel. And that needs to change. We need to overcome our biases, our prejudices, and we need to understand for those that are in a position of power, you need to lose yourself and serve the people that have been serving you. And our servicemen on this platform, Christopher, James, military veteran, my hat goes off to you. How does Gandhi's quote land on you?
I had a image, I had a let's just call it something to say about 15, 20 minutes ago. And then listening to Paul and Kevin and being inspired by what Francine said, but more importantly, I mean, like, Larnez went on with all these big words and fancy expressions.
I got my dictionary here when Larnez is talking.
Well, I've got a list of about 3 big words that I'm going to use: skyscraper, super tanker, King Kong, and Godzilla. Those are the big words. But something personal happens to me whenever I go to work. Okay, I'm a child of the idea that if you love what you're doing, you'll never work a day in your life. I strongly believe that. And Kevin, McGill, you and I are on the same little pontoon when it comes to VA service. We came to Boston so that I could work for the VA in HUD-VASH, doing exactly what you described, doing, finding homes for homeless vets. And I never saw that as work. I always saw that as not so much public service, but simply me giving back, me filling that void that was created when I went to serve. I went to serve because of the way I felt, but more importantly, I went to serve for the people that I loved, even those that I did, especially those that I didn't know. But a funny thing happens to me when I find myself in public service. First off, that old adage of loving what you're doing and never having to work a day in your life, it, just fills me with that. But there is a weird analogy with public service and loving what you do. God won't place you where you won't be able to serve. In other words, he'll never give you more than what you can actually handle. And in those cases where you're placed in a position where you feel like you aren't capable of doing what's required, God simply gives you that power, that ability to get it done. Now, the funny thing about that is, in public service or any other application, oftentimes we allow our ego to overdo it. All we see is perfection. Everything that we do is just perfect. You can't tell me how to do this. I know how to do it. I am the expert at this. And the funny thing is, you may be the only one that sees that perfection. And you may be actually doing the absolute worst job possible. But in your mind, okay, I'm just doing this because I love it. That is instantly reversed when other people who simply saw you come forward and offer your assistance and do exactly what's required, simply, I won't call it magical, but simply doing exactly what's required, and then stop and tell you, you know what? Thank you for being here. Thank you for offering what you brought to this particular service. My goodness, we could not have done it without you. That is the I love me part of this job that makes it no longer a job. I mean, like, call me a junkie, call me, a egocentric monster. I devour that. I live off of that. I got the rare experience yesterday at church of working with 6 extremely talented young women who are our camera crew at our church. These ladies are artists. Their ages range from about 9 to 14. They are artists. And what most inspired me is those young ladies on those cameras, bringing in those shots, those views. made our online production perfect. I mean, like they artistically went through the crowd and picked out those moments. And in our summary at the end of the service, I told them that they made this old man look good. That is the service that I feel most empowered by, most energized by, and that's where I find myself. Now, I'll place that aside for right now. The quote basically talks to me in a way that there is a special you out there somewhere that is most likely involved in some type of service, some type of endeavor, some type of work. For me, that work is service to others. And when engaged in that service, I'm as happy as I can be. I'm as complete as I can be. And that's what that quote means to me. And for Larnez, the planet Saturn, and I think a couple of great big old semi-tractor trailers going down the highway are my big words for the day. Thank you.
All right. We can park it right there. Christopher, thank you. And thank you for your great share. I know that our listeners, especially people that are just tuning in and trying to figure out what's going on, all these wonderful people, no one will ever know that this show started out with one. And no one will ever know through the conversation. This reminds me of a backyard conversation, which is the style that I use for my podcast, talking with Kevin and Son. Is that, I remember what it was like to sit with the elders, the neighbors, and sit there as a child and just, being told to put in my place as they poured into me. At that time, I never thought I was paying attention, but I hope our listeners are paying attention, because there's a lot of great wisdom. And I don't know if anyone could put words together better than the next person coming up. I mean, he makes rock music sound like a slow jam when he says good morning. So our voice of the show, and he's going to deliver the quote one more time before I give my share, and we'll wrap up. So Otis, go ahead, turn them on.
All right. The best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others. And for me, I've been in customer service most of my life. And you get to see a lot of things. And if you are a person of good heart, good soul, you know how to treat people with respect. And if you do that, pretty much you're going to get the same respect back. As they say, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. You need to open your eyes to the world, because you're not always right. You have to acknowledge when you're wrong. We can't change the past, but we can fix the future. And that's how it landed on me.
Oh, and that's smooth sailing right there. And Otis, thank you for that. I've always been taught that if you're the smartest person in the room, you need to find new friends. And I am so glad that I've been blessed to be with so many wonderful, articulate, giving, kind people that have allowed themselves here on this Easter Sunday to give their time and to pour into you without asking for you to pour back in. Many of the people, if not all the people, their cups are running over because they give so much, and they're still trying to fill the cup next door to them. And that cup would be you. When I listen to this quote, and it says, the best way to lose yourself is in the service of others. This is a conversation that's been poured into me from day one. We end the last part of the show with the gift that my grandfather gave me. I never knew I was paying attention until I start to use it in conversations myself. But we're all paying attention. You know what it feels like when you say hello to someone and they just walk by you? You know what it feels like when you open the door and they don't acknowledge that, they say thank you or whatever the case may be? You ever know what it's like when, or how it feels when you say good morning? Sometimes we want to go ahead and says, come on, wake up. I was just nice to you. But you know how it feels when you say that, I say good morning because I meant good morning. I opened the door because, I grew up with Southern upbringing, so I opened the door. And sometimes you don't know what other people have gone through are going through. And I know what it's like to sit there and have a person stand at the post office and tell me how bad their day is. And I just lost my grandfather. I got news of my grandfather 15 minutes before, and I gave them a hug. So you can't, I shared this with you guys this morning. You can't see your reflection in boiling water. So when your own life is in chaos and whatever, sometimes you got to get out of your way. Or you find the truth is not in anger, it's when the water is calm. And if your heart is pure and you're giving without looking for anything in return, clarity sets in. So with that said, I can't say any other way that I would like to spend my Easter Sunday than with Gildan Christopher, Larnez, Francine, Otis, Kevin McGill. We got to give you a nickname because our initials are the same. Because I was going to call you K-Mac, but that's what they call me too. So what's the D stand for, Kevin?
For Daryl.
All right. All right. We got two Daryls on here. I'll figure out some name.
KD. Just call me KD.
KD. There you go. We'll do that. And Mr. Paul Brown, the great wisdom. And you guys are all beautiful people. Not only physically, but also spiritually. And like I said, the show started out with one, and look what happened. Brother Naheem is killing it in his play by August Wilson up in the Boston area. They've extended that. So if you get a chance to go see Naheem Garcia in that play, I don't remember. Christopher, what's the name of the play?
King Hedley II.
Yep.
King Hedley II. I will tell you, he was in the holdover. And I will be the first to tell you, whoever wrote the script, whatever, you need to pay attention to detail because you underdeveloped Naheem's character because he is a serious player in that industry. So I'm gonna forgive you for your oversight because I know that when you're telling a story, you're limited on pages. But I think sometimes rules need to be broken and develop that character. So the next person that casts Naheem Garcia into any type of role, just let him go. Don't hold him back. And so with that said, my grandfather said, when you get to a place in life that you can help someone else out, it is your duty to do so. Reach one, teach one. And with that said, Larnez,
we fade to black.
And we're out. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for another great show.